In this next lesson, we're going to look at slavery in more detail by studying the conditions and experience of slaves on the Middle Passage. That is the second part of the triangular trade from West Africa to the Caribbean and North America, where slaves were embarked upon these ships. So our first activity is knowledge retrieval. Good habit. Remember, we are teaching a knowledge-rich course here. Name the three parts or the three stages of the triangular trade and what was traded at each stage of the journey. Students reflecting back on the activity we did last lesson. And then the green pen work, so the students can reflect and amend their work. Some information there about the context of slavery. And a reminder that it's not just the British that were involved in the slave trade, it was all the European nations. Britain was a relative latecomer to slave trading, but turned out to be one of the best at it. A quote here from John Newton, the captain of a slave trading ship. And John Newton is an especially profound witness, as John Newton would have a religious epiphany on one of his journeys and give up his job of being a slave trader and become a devout Christian. He went on to later write Abide with Me, and the lyrics in that reflect his experience as a slave trader. Very powerful quote here of the ships being followed by sharks, where the corpses were thrown out because obviously any diseased slave is consequently going to threaten the entire cargo of slaves. If the Atlantic were to dry up, it would reveal a scattered pathway of human bones, African bones marking the various routes of the Middle Passage. Okay, so a source-based activity. We need the students to very quickly work through the reading here and extract the information, and the note-taking in this particular activity will be in the basis of a mind map. How were the slaves controlled? What were the living conditions like? The feelings of the slaves, food and attitude of the crew and the captain. It may be that students need to make some inferences about some of these, and it would be interesting if the students could make the distinction on their mind map between what they've comprehended and what they have inferred. Moving on. Read source F and answer the questions. Source F is James Penny's Evidence to Parliament in 1789. Now, slavery was abolished in 1807, but the journey that the slave traders went on, the slave abolitionists went on, was a very, very long and drawn out one. And that would end from all the way in the 18th century, the latter part of the 18th century, through to the abolition in 1807. So the students are to read and then answer the questions. You'll please notice here the skills embedded in each of the questions, the inference. So what can you infer? How can you prove this? They're going to need to provide quotes. Why is the impression different from other sources? Refer to the nature, origin and purpose. Again, skills that students should become very fluent in by the time they get to this stage in Year 8. Is it possible that both sources, there is some truth? Then, moving on. Redemption Song, lyrics from Bob Marley, and the analysis of that. And next lesson, the impact of the slave trade on Africa. And before I conclude, guidance to wider viewing that the students can view during this lesson.